Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Brian Kelly, the LSU Tigers, they put the college football landscape on notice Saturday night on the road against Clemson. I think there were a lot of LSU fans that knew this team had the roster to really make some noise in 2025. I think we just weren't really sure how it was all going to come together. Could Brian Kelly put it all together and get over the hump in 2025? Well, it's still early. It's only post week one. You saw it all come together on the road Saturday night against Clemson. Want to take a deeper dive into what we saw from LSU and really dive into why this team is built to win it all in the 2025 year. But I want to start with just some overall observations before we get a little bit more nitty gritty. Number one, this team clearly hit on the newcomers in the portal, specifically on defense. We knew there were some positions that needed to get addressed. LSU ponied up the money, but look, there's a difference between ponying up the money and getting guys that are actually filling what you need to get. LSU hit. I mean, you talk about Bernard Gudin, you talk about Mansour Delane, you talk about AJ Halsey. Some of the best football players on the field for LSU were some of the guys they brought in through the portal. Massive shout out to the personnel staff for LSU. Crushed it with the evaluations that they made in the portal. Number two, these coordinators, they're legit. I mean, now you talk about why LSU are a part of the reason why LSU won this game. Blake Baker, with arguably the best defensive coordinator performance, you might say, out of the entire country Saturday night. I mean, had Cade Klubnik locked up pretty much the entire game. I don't know. I don't think Cade Klubnik knew what he was looking at most of the time. We knew Blake Baker was a great defensive coordinator. We just knew he didn't have the personnel in 2024. Well, one thing we learned Saturday night, he's got the personnel. Like, I'm looking at this LSU defense saying, hey, if you told me LSU finishes as a top 15 defense in the country, I wouldn't be all that surprised. I think they got the personnel. I think they got NFL dudes at all three levels. And I know damn well they have a defensive coordinator that can maximize this unit as well. Joe Sloan on the offensive side, look, it wasn't super flashy, and we knew it wasn't going to be super flashy on the road against that Clemson defense. Thought Joe Sloan had a really strong game plan, especially going into the second half. Hey, ball out quick, giving Garrett Nussmeier a lot of easy answers because we knew, there were some question marks about this offensive line holding up in pass protection. Garrett Nussmeier was really damn good. I thought Joe Sloan did a really good job scheming around a Clemson pass rush that we knew could really wreck a game. Garrett Nussmeier is probably the third observation I'll give out. Go back and look at the quarterbacks that have gotten over the hump and won national championships. It's not necessarily the quarterbacks that are going 1-1 in the NFL draft, although I think Garrett Nussmeier has a very good shot to be a top 5 NFL draft pick. It's the quarterbacks that have been around the block. Will Howard at Ohio State, J.J. McCarthy at Michigan, Stetson Bennett at Georgia. There's a lot of national media, national championship hype around some of these teams that have young, fiery quarterbacks. And look, there are a lot of young, good quarterbacks in this conference and in this country. There are not many quarterbacks that have the talent that Garrett Nussmeier has, but more importantly, have been around the block the way Garrett Nussmeier has. And I thought you saw that show up in that game Saturday night against Clemson. Lastly, and this is what should fire up the LSU fans the most. This team's only getting better. I mean, you look at this team, say that there's a lot of new faces. This offensive line is still trying to find its footing. They're still trying to find their best five. This is a team that I think will continue to get better as the season goes on. And they're coming at a starting point that's a little bit higher than I expected. There's a reason that I picked Clemson in that football game. I just didn't think it all come together for LSU immediately week one. Well, guess what? They are starting from a point a lot higher than I expected it to be. And I feel very confident, I should say, that this team is going to continue to get better as the year goes on. When you talk about a team that has a veteran quarterback, that has we know the personnel to win a national championship, we think has the coordinators to win a national championship, and is going to continue to get better. Like kind of like Ohio State last year. Like Ohio State was not the best football team in the regular season, but when they hit their peak, they became the best team. I think there's still some room to grow, and we'll get into some of that stuff that I think LSU can improve on. That's what should fire up LSU fans. Like, well, that was a damn good performance Saturday night. I think they're going to get better as the season goes on. That's where I wanted to start. Want to get into, some players that really pop for me. Before we get into it, as always, to the LSU fans, appreciate you guys. Now we're a couple of days removed from the game. Would love to hear how the LSU fans are feeling in the comment section. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Without further ado, let's get into it. This defense, that's where I want to start this conversation. It has the chance to be great. We saw a great performance Saturday night against Clemson. Want to start with this defensive line. Bernard Gooden, to me, the most impactful defensive lineman for LSU. Thought he was really, really solid against the run. Here's the thing with Bernard Gooden. Thought he did a lot of dirty work well. Like, Bernard Gooden's best traits are what he can do in the pass rush, what he can do from a penetration standpoint. Look, when you're playing in the SEC, and when you're playing big boy football at the Power 4 level, you're going to have to eat up some double teams. You're going to have to be stingy and do some dirty work. Although he's a little bit of a smaller player, I thought he held up and did the dirty work at a high level. Had 4 quarterback hurries on the night. That's not all that surprising. We know this kid can get after the passer. Really impressed with what we saw from Bernard Gooden. I thought you saw some good things from Jacoby and Guillory at times. Here's the one thing I want to see from LSU going forward. That pass rush with their front four. Blake Baker did a phenomenal job dialing up blitzes. In fact, he blitzed Cade Klubnik 67% of dropbacks on those blitzes, 45% completion percentage, 5.5 yards per pass attempt. It was elite from Blake Baker in terms of the blitz packages. My question is, can LSU do a better job relying on their front four to get after the quarterback? That's something, because I think they got the dudes. Talk about Gabe Relaford, you talk about Pat Payton, you talk about Jack Pyburn, Bernard Gooden on the inside. I think there's a step. I think there's a little bit more bite that this LSU front four can have in the pass rush. Linebackers were freaking awesome. That's about as good as we've seen Harold Perkins play since going back to his true freshman year. Doing a really good job putting him in spots where he can make an impact on the game. Thought he was phenomenal in space. Obviously very good when he got his pass rush opportunities, and we know about Whit Weeks. One of the best off-ball backers in the country. The story here was how much improved this secondary is. Hey, here's the thing. Like, Blake Baker, we knew Blake Baker wanted to send pressure last year. Didn't really have the opportunity to, because he didn't have the guys on the outside to hold up. If LSU was going to blitz, like, they needed to hold up against some really good wide receivers. Look, I don't think LSU is going to see a ton of wide receiver rooms that are better than what Clemson was trotting out there. LSU just locked him up. I mean, here's one of the stats that really stood out to me. Only 7 missed tackles in the back end, 107 yards after the catch allowed. That's a crazy small number. What that tells me is there was not a lot of separation being created by these Clemson wide receivers. Mansour Delane emerged as one of the best cornerbacks in the SEC. At least that's what he put on film week 1 against Clemson. You have a true cornerback one. You got some veteran safeties. I think you trust Ashton Stamps. I think you trust DJ Pickett. Talk about a guy that's going to come on. Like, DJ Pickett going to play a lot for LSU in 2025. Find me the weak link in this LSU defense. LSU's had players before on defense. They've never had a complete defense. They've always had an Achilles heel. They've always had a hole. I didn't see one Saturday night against Clemson. Really good in the front 7, especially against the run. Absolutely nails in the secondary in the back end. This LSU defense has the eye. They got a lot of NFL talent, but they're also complete. They have the opportunity to be just about as good as any defense in the country. Number 2, the offense, I think, will continue to get better, right? And I think it starts with the offensive line. Did LSU's offensive line win tonight against Clemson? No, that'd probably be an unfair statement to make. I thought the inside of the offensive line, Braylon Moore, Paul, Josh Thompson, Cohen Eccles a little bit too. I thought they were nails. I mean, that I didn't hear Peter Woods' name almost once on the broadcast. They did a really good job, and it ain't only Peter Woods. Talk about guys like Caper, talk about guys like Stefan Green. Stefan Green could play. I didn't hear anything, from that Clemson interior defensive line. That's a shout out to Braylon Moore. That's a shout out to Paul. That's a shout out to Josh Thompson. The tackles will continue to come on. Like, they definitely gave up some pressure. I ain't going to get up here and say it was a perfect game from the tackles. Here's what I'm saying, though. this offensive line will figure it out. The reason I picked Clemson in this game is because I kind of knew it wasn't going to be perfect from them up front. I thought Garrett Nussmeier did a really good job getting himself out of trouble, did a really good job. I think he only took one sack, which is very impressive. That was a problem for Garrett Nussmeier at times last year. Did a really good job getting himself out of trouble, did a really good job getting the ball out of his hands. Got to give a shout out to Joe Sloan, too. Thought he had an excellent game plan. Hey, we know that vertical passing attack, which we know we can get to. Like LSU will be pushing the ball down the field at times in 2025. We knew that probably wasn't going to be all there here because I don't think we could block them up for that long. If you want to push the ball down the field, well, your offensive line has to hold up and pass, bro. Did a really good job designing ways to get the football to Aaron Anderson, get the football to Barry and Brown. They're dynamic after the catch. Like the yards after the catch is going to be a massive, massive part of this LSU offense. When they can protect, they going to push it. They just didn't have the opportunity against Clemson week 1. And if you get this offensive line finding its stride, which I firmly believe at some point this offensive line going to click, and it's going to emerge as not a question mark, arguably maybe a strength at some point for LSU. Last thing I'll say, well, number one, Trey Green continue to get opportunities. And in these kind of football games, red zone offense can be the difference maker. Are you coming away with 3 or are you coming away with 6? Trey Green in the red zone is going to be a problem for a lot of opposing defenses. Just throw the football up to him. He's going to be a basketball player and go get that sucker. Last one, I'll shout out Caden Durham. Thought he was really good. And again, it's not necessarily going to show up on the box score. Ran the ball really well. I thought Joe Sloan did a really nice job designing some wrinkles in the run game. The run game Saturday night against Clemson, it was all about just keeping this offense on schedule. It was all about keeping this offense out of those third and second and obvious passing situations. We knew Caden Durham just had to be tough. Just had to be tough. And I thought he was. And I thought he kept LSU out of some of those third and long, not ideal passing situations. Really, really good performance from LSU, and I truly think they're only going to get better. And then you kind of couple with that with like looking around the SEC landscape and say, hey, this conference is gettable, and this is wide open. There is no super team in college football right now. You look at LSU and say they made a statement, hey, they could be one of the favorites to win a national championship. In fact, that's kind of how I view them right now after what we saw week 1. We'll close it out there. A ton to be excited about with this LSU football team. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later.